What's going on, YouTube? So for many of us growing up, you were able to see the rise and fall of the Hummer brand, but it's back and perhaps better than ever before. Now what I'm standing next to right now is the Hummer EV SUV, and this is truly a product like nothing else out there on the road. And we've actually had the privilege to live with it for the past week. So is this the ultimate vehicle to make a statement in your neighborhood? Let's go ahead and find out.
As always, let's start things out under the hood for a quick spec dump. Now, as you can see, there is nothing under this hood, only a massive frunk because this is an EV product after all. You have two different motor setups. We have the most powerful tri-motor setup today that makes up to 830 horsepower. And the overall estimated range for this model is about 310 miles.
Now the base price of the Hummer EV SUV is around $97,000. And if you're looking to buy one or any vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, of course, we'll be taking it out for a spin. We'll talk about some specific 7-day elements because we did live with this vehicle, but we need to talk about the exterior and interior first.
Now, starting out here with the exterior design, well guys, there's no denying the fact that this is a Hummer. This really makes a statement, and everybody we showed this model to this week really found it to be quite attractive and really, really cool. Now, there is one 2026 model edition I want to talk about this year. They're adding a limited run carbon edition, which does add some special wheels, some color accents, and other things that we'll talk about throughout this model, including some carbon fiber accents themselves. But let's talk about this model we have here today. Lighting is going to be the biggest design feature for this model. So I want to start up out at the top there. We can see the amber marker lights up on the top of the roof. And then this fades down into this massive light bar. Again, there's no denying that this is a Hummer. It's spelled out all throughout the front, and that goes into your turn signals as well. It's a dynamic turn signal. And then the actual headlight unit itself is a projector LED located in this housing down below. Speaking of down below, guys, this is incredibly rugged down here. This model is incredibly capable. You're sitting at about 10.2 inches of standard ground clearance, but with this air suspension that's standard on all models, you can go up to 16 inches of ground clearance in the extract mode. And you're gonna have a bunch of rugged elements, including gigantic tow hooks and some underbody protection as well. Headed to the wheels, I already hear the jokes already saying that we look tiny next to this thing, and this makes just about anybody look tiny. But as far as your wheels are concerned, you do have standard 22-inch alloys on all models. You can option on a more rugged tire setup that includes an 18-inch wheel as well. Overall, I really like this design. It fits this model quite well. Moving up, you have the very wide fender flares, some branding along the side, and these massive mirrors as well. As far as the features are concerned, everything is standard, including blind spot monitoring, heating, power folding, puddle lamps, and auto dimming here on the driver's side.
Now at the side, this is the SUV version. Yes, there are two versions of the Hummer. You can get a pickup truck version or the SUV. This one's 206 inches in overall length. And of course, we'll mean it's a little bit more practical for those of you that might have families. Now, as far as design touches, there's a lot going on here. We do have cool stuff such as an American flag built into this piece right here. And of course, the roof can come off as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the inside. Now, while we're here at the side, I do want to mention the rear steering. This vehicle does come standard with rear steering, and of course you've probably seen the crab walk items, which kind of allows the vehicle to go side to side. That's a very cool feature and a party trick for sure. New for 2026 is that there's a king crab version though, so that's going to add for increased maneuverability in tighter off-road situations. It can actually allow these rear wheels to turn at up to 10 degrees. So over the past week, we've certainly found this vehicle, despite it being absolutely massive and very wide, to be quite maneuverable. Now, as we head around to the rear design, once more, You're not going to mistake this for anything else out on the road. You know, throughout the week, we've just had people stop and stare at this vehicle. Now, as far as design touches, we have those marker lights up there at the top. We have our big spare tire that's prominently across the back. And of course, we need to talk about our lighting. We have full LED taillights as expected. So that's your brake light, your reverse light, and your turn signal indicator. You have some Hummer branding. And then dropping down to the lower fascia, of course, this vehicle can tow. It's very powerful. It can tow up to around 12,000 pounds. pounds. However, if you choose the 3X, it goes down to 10,600. Now let's talk safety. Of course, this is expensive, so all of your active safety features are standard equipment this year, and you also have things like Super Cruise as standard equipment. Now, GMC did actually retune the software to make it even better this year, and I have to say, it certainly has worked really well in our testing, and Super Cruise worked flawlessly despite this vehicle's width. But there's a lot to talk about on the inside, so let's dive into that. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars.
All right, so let's hop inside to check out the interior. First, let's start with your key. You have your typical GM key fob. It has some additional branding on here though, and then you also have some additional controls for your front as well. You have standard smart entry, remote start, and animations as you walk up to the vehicle. But in order to unlock the door, you just press the button on the handle and the mirrors will fold out and the windows, which are frameless, will move down. But go ahead and check out this interior for this very rugged yet luxurious vehicle. But we will start out here with the seating materials. So all models will have a leather-free cabin. So this includes a premium leatherette is what GMC calls it for this Hummer. We don't fully agree with the premium branding. While it's kind of soft and supple here in the middle, the outsides are more of a almost like a traditional vinyl type of material. We don't really care for that as much. We wish they would have gone for a more premium instead of rugged material, but the seats overall look very nice. You do have two new colors for this year. That will be Granite Drift and Stealth Eclipse. This is the Granite Drift theme. And then as far as your seating adjustments, you have standard 12 ways of power adjustment, but no massage for this model. And then you have memory over on the door trim. But let's go ahead and climb inside. And as I climb inside, you'll see that you do have standard side steps, though you do not have a power setup for this model. And as you see, this is an EV product after all, so there's no start-stop button. You just get inside and it'll start up, or you can also activate it with the brake. But let's go ahead and talk about some of your interior materials overall. So looking here at the door trim, you're going to have more of that rough feeling leatherette material. That goes up into some color contrast material with a stitching detail as well. Most of your upper dash will be a mix of hard touch and soft touch plastics, and you do have some metal-like trim as well. This is going to be hard touch plastic though, and then that also goes into the center console area where it's also more hard touch plastic. For this price point, we wish there could have been some more leatherette use throughout this cabin itself. But let's go ahead and talk about the technology elements for this Hummer. All right, so starting with the details, we'll start with the gauge cluster. You have a standard 11-inch fully digital gauge cluster on this model, and you can customize it with different views, such as having Google Maps in there as well. One thing to keep in mind is that you do not have a head-up display. Supposedly that's due to the angle of the windshield itself, and I will mention the fun party trick for this model is that you do have 3 front windshield wipers. As far as the steering wheel is concerned, you have a leather wrapped one as standard. It's also heated and power adjusting, and the heating does go all the way around and it works quite well. Now this model is gigantic and it also has a gigantic amount of storage, so let's start with the center console. Looking inside, you'll see that we have our signature Car Confections donut test in there. It is our logo after all, and inside we are fully maxing it out and then some. We have more than 24 donuts inside of this console, and we're not done yet. Open this up, you have 2 cup holders. Open this up, you have a standard wireless phone charging pad. And then over to the side, you have a absolutely massive amount of pass-through storage as well. Plenty for bags and whatever you want to throw at it. Now that is courtesy of a electronic shifter. It's not the column mounted style, but it's still pretty easy to use. Pull back for drive. You push up for reverse, and you'll be greeted by a standard 360-degree camera on all models. You can also option on some underbody cameras for off-road duty as well. And then you can put it into park, and you have a drive mode controller back behind it. That includes things like your air suspension and crab walk controls. Now moving up a little bit, you'll be greeted by a large amount of physical switches. And while they might look pretty cool, and we're glad to see physical switches for your 3-zone climate controls, they are a little bit hard to use because I do want to mention that this cabin does not have any ambient lighting inside of it. So these aren't going to be backlit or anything. So when it comes to controlling things like your standard heated and ventilated seats, you first have to activate it with this and then move over and use these individual toggles along the side. So it can be just a little bit difficult to use. Wish they would at least include some lighting to make these physical controls more useful overall. Now another physical control we have is the volume knob. You do have a standard 14 speaker Bose audio system on all models, so let's give that a sample. So while the speaker grills do look quite beautiful themselves, we wish GMC would have maybe pulled something from the Cadillac lineup and used an AKG for some overall higher sound quality. This is quite bass heavy. But now let's go ahead and check out the rest of your screen here. This is a 13.4 inch touch screen, and it does include some of your climate controls down at the bottom. But overall, this is going to be updated to the newest GMC software for this year. So you have easy controls like your home screen with all of your different apps. You have a kind of a combination screen here if you want to see what you're listening to and your maps themselves, and a lot of other useful controls within. This does have Google built in, but keep in mind there is no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto since this is an electric product. So keep that in mind for your purchasing decision. Overall, our phone's connected pretty well throughout this week though. Now wrapping up the cabin, you have an auto-dimming mirror up top. This is a standard camera mirror as well. And then you have your HomeLink remotes built into the visor itself. And then of course, the roof is another really cool party feature for this model. You have the 4 individual removable panels. You have a couple different options for that as well. You can also get things like a sliding back convertible roof. And then you can store these panels up in the front as well. And finally, I do want to mention that the rear glass on the tailgate can also roll down.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the Hummer SUV's rear seat area and see how practical it is. As you probably can see, it is pretty spacious back here, so let's go ahead and talk about those space numbers first and foremost. So as far as legroom, we're looking at 39 inches of legroom, 38.4 inches of headroom. Those are pretty decent figures for sure. And of course, you can remove the roof, so you'd have unlimited amounts of headroom if you do that. So overall, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the space. And of course, I brought along, this is not the official Car Confections ruler. Drew actually has that right now, and he's out traveling. And we have about 10 inches of knee space. That's really fantastic. That's my own 5'9" seating position, and my feet can slide up underneath of the seats. Speaking of the seats, they're quite comfortable back here, and they're also very wide even here in the middle seat. So it's definitely reasonable for 3 adults to fit back here. 2 cup holders and the fold-down armrest. And as far as other features, we have our own zone of climate back here. Additionally, heated back seats are standard equipment. No ventilated back seats, though. Vents down below, 2 USB ports, a storage cubby, and we even have a household style outlet down below there. Now looking at your door trim over there, you'll find the same nice materials. So you have that kind of like vinyl-y leatherette all through the center section. It's nice and padded, and there's a ton of door storage as well. So you have a bottle storage right up there in the front as well as down below. And let's go ahead and check out the cargo area as well. Now this does have a side opening tailgate, so that's pretty pertinent information. Don't open it thinking that it's going to go up and then ram something behind you. That is a little bit of a practicality issue, I will say, in the day-to-day. Now, as far as the space, let's talk about that. We're sitting at about 36 cubic feet of space behind the second row of seats. If we fold those seats down, we have a maximum of around 81 cubic feet of space. You can use these buttons over here on this side to electronically fold to get you that maximum cargo capacity. Overall, that's going to be a pretty good amount of space. This really doesn't have a ton of comparable vehicles really per se. But if you're looking in the full-size luxury segment, for instance, and cross-shopping it against those vehicles, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. We've looked at almost every single vehicle segment and ranked each segment in individual categories that matter most to that specific buyer. Things like cargo space, interior technology, luxury features, and and value. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, I promise you won't regret going to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now, let's go ahead and get our cargo length, width, and height figures. You know, the SUV version is really the more practical of the two options when it comes to cargo capacity. So behind my 5'9" seating position, we're looking at about 82 inches of cargo length. From behind the second row of seats, we're looking at 43 inches of length. Let's get the opening. The opening is going to be 48 inches, so 4 feet wide. The height, really not fantastic on the height. It's a little over 29 inches. And then let's look at the load-in height, because I will say, guys, the load-in height for this model is definitely going to be a little bit of a problem for some people, because look how tall it is. Now, you can lower the air suspension, so that's something to be aware of, but that's probably the tallest load-in height I've ever seen, 39 inches as far as our overall load-in height. So that is definitely on the taller side, and you're going to have to lift things up to get it into the cargo area. Now, of course, you do have a full-size spare tire, and that's located very obviously on the back of the tailgate itself. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the GMC Hummer EV SUV. Of course, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the driving experience of this vehicle, so let's go ahead and get started. Of course, we'll also be getting things like our sound level reading and discussing our real-world efficiency. All right, there's 60.
I think we need to add a new level to the smile reader called scary.
Yeah, I have to say that's a pretty scary vehicle to accelerate in, that is for sure. So that was a little bit past 60. I was around 65 miles an hour. We're just in the normal modes and everything. That was just me stomping the gas down. And, you know, as you've probably seen throughout this video, we have the 3X, so the tri-motor model. That means that we have the most powerful Hummer SUV that you can get. Has up to 830 horsepower in 0 to 60 in up to 3.5 seconds. So those are pretty insane figures, especially for a vehicle that weighs this much. You can feel the mass when you get behind the wheel, and it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, the suspension, you know, we have an air suspension on this model, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and in its loosey-goosey mode, it is a little scary to do that acceleration in. You are looking at the sky for a few seconds. So as you saw throughout this video, all of the features are standard for this model. The biggest difference between the different model lines will be the drive unit. So as Mason said, this is the 3X model. You can also get the 2X model, and that is just the difference of an electric motor. So 3X equals 3 electric motors, 2X equals 2 electric motors. So that's going to be the slower option. That's up to 570 horsepower and a 0 to 60 as low as 4.5 seconds. So yeah, so slow.
But I imagine most people will be opting for the tri-motor model because, quite frankly, if you're going to spend $100,000, you might as well spend the extra, I think, like $5,000 to $7,000 to get the tri-motor to really give you that insane acceleration. It definitely is enough to put a smile on your face. However, I will say, you know, all of us driving this car this week, it's honestly pretty scary. You do not want to do like a super hard acceleration on a very narrow road, because the vehicle kind of like, it gets loose in the front end and you start turning the wheel and you're not even really moving that direction. So as far as like cars that I've accelerated in and I've gone like, wow, that's kind of scary, this is one of them for sure. And now we turned out onto our designated strip of road to discuss things like ride quality. So living with the vehicle for 7 days, you certainly get to drive it on all types of road surfaces. And overall, I'm pretty impressed with what this vehicle has been able to accomplish. Like Josh just mentioned just a second ago, you have a standard air suspension, so that means that the overall ride is pretty good for this model. It soaks up all the bumps in the road that you hit, and really it just, the best way to describe how this vehicle feels when driving is just feels like you're driving a tank. Like you hit a bump in the road and it's like it doesn't even matter. Even if you feel some of it comes into the cabin, it doesn't matter because it feels like this thing is just absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah, and part of the updates for 2026 are some some changed tuning for your suspension overall to overall increase your comfort, and I definitely say this is quite comfortable. I don't think you'll notice that this is a big, rugged off-roader.
No.
Overall, it has a pretty smooth ride quality, and these seats are quite comfortable as well.
Yeah, I would say compared to maybe like a Rivian R1S that also has an air suspension, I'd say this is just as comfortable, if not maybe even more comfortable with that retuned air suspension tuning. I think that they've done a better job with the air suspension than Rivian did. All right, so now I'm placing it in the wide open watts function. What it's going to go ahead and do is lower the vehicle's air suspension, because you definitely probably would fly off the road if it left it fully up. And right now we're in standby, so we can go ahead and pull out, and it's going to prompt me to stop my foot on the brake and then the gas at the same time, and then we'll go ahead and take off. All right, here we go.
Holy crap. That'll get you there.
Excuse me, this is called watts to freedom on the GMC instead of the other ones, but that is crazy fast. I will say it makes it way faster. We didn't test it on the normal drive mode, but when you put it in this mode, way faster to 60. Let's do it one more time. There's no one behind us. Why not?
Holy crap.
It doesn't make sense to your brain that something with this type of mass can move at that type of speed. That's absolutely incredible. And really, I think that's what this car is all about. So I'm glad they've, included these modes. You don't buy this because it's the most practical thing out there. You buy it because it's fun, and I love this mode right here.
Yeah, I mean, this thing weighs about 9,000 pounds, so the Hummer is full of plenty of party tricks for you to show off to your friends and family in.
All right, I'll go ahead and try and put the traction control back on. Yeah, there we go. Now we're out of that mode, and we can go and get things like our sound level reading, so we can see how quiet this Hummer EV SUV is.
All right, we'll be sitting about 59 decibels for this Hummer EV SUV, and I don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to all of its rivals. I'll go to carconfections.com/sound level readings to find that out. So yeah, when you consider you're driving a massive block with all-terrain tires, that is going to be a little louder when it comes to EVs, but overall, I think it's a little bit windy outside today. I was pretty impressed with the overall sound deadening within this cabin. It's not going to feel like a Jeep Wrangler or a Ford Bronco or anything like that.
Right. I mean, if you consider the fact that the roof can be fully removed, I think that is pretty impressive. The Jeep Wrangler is pretty much like the loudest vehicle that money can buy. So if this is a decently quiet cabin, I think they've done a pretty good job. All right, and let's go ahead and talk about range and efficiency. I'll go ahead and start with the range. It's 310 miles if you choose the 3X model. The 2X is 319, so you get slightly more range with the dual motor version. And as far as the overall battery capacity, it's a 20 module battery, and it's kind of hard to find the exact capacity for the SUV version, but what we were sitting at upon our research is around 180 kilowatt hours. It's a huge battery, as expected, but it is smaller than what you get in the pickup truck version, which is around 212 usable hours for the battery pack size.
Yeah, that truck is just going to be a lot longer, so it's going to allow for that extra space to be put in for that larger battery. And as far as your charging components go, you're going to have a standard CCS charger for this model, so no NACS port just yet, but you can charge up to speeds of 300 kilowatts on DC fast charging. And then on board for your home charging, you have a 19.2 kilowatt home charger. And new for 2026, this Hummer is now V2H capable, so if you have like a power outage or anything and you're equipped to do so, you can charge up appliances and other things within your home.
Now, what about efficiency? We've had pretty much a perfect weather week out here in Kentucky, so it's been about 75 degrees, so about optimal for an electric vehicle, and we've been getting 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour across around 320-something miles of driving, so a pretty extensive test. That's not awful efficiency, but of course, this is a huge block, and it can be sitting way high up off the ground, so it's going to be pretty much your least efficient EV that money could buy, that's for sure. Now, I also want to hit our slam dunk and airball, our favorite and least favorite element after living with it. And I'm going to say the slam dunk today is just all the cool features that this Hummer EV has. Now, I think that really the main reason someone would buy this is because it's cool. You have the removable roof panels, you have all the cool watts to freedom modes and things like that. And I think GMC really kind of played into that, and it looks cool. People will stop and stare at this vehicle. It really stands out.
Yeah, and on the airball side of things, one thing that doesn't stand out is the interior luxury. We wish GMC would have put some more premium materials in this cabin. A lot of this is going to be hard touch plastic, including some things like some ambient lighting, massage seats, and maybe improving the overall seating material as a whole.
So after a week, what do we think of this Hummer EV? Well, I think we all kind of like it a little bit better. Kind of going into this, I think we had a little bit of a preconceived notion that it's kind of like a stupid electric vehicle, but also at the same time, it has a lot of cool elements as well, and it's kind of hard to not like driving around a tank. This feels like driving around a tank. I don't know about you, Josh.
Oh, yeah. Like, once you get used to driving it, you get used to the width and everything. It's really fun, and it certainly turns a lot of heads.
Now let's talk pricing. All of this coolness doesn't come cheap, that's for sure. It starts at $97,000. You do get standard four-wheel drive. The 3X, so the tri-motor model, is $105,000 as a starting point. And as tested today, we're sitting at around $107,000. So that's certainly a pretty pricey option, that is for sure. Now this vehicle is assembled in Michigan. And if you're looking to buy a Hummer EV or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use if you're going to do any dealership negotiating. Now, if you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as useful tools such as our monthly payment calculator, you can find all of that at carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, buying a car is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale, reliability, and the warranty. First up, let's talk about resale value. GMC as a brand is rated at 55.81% of estimated retained value after 5 years and 60,000 miles. And after 10 years and 120,000 miles, it's rated at 21.63% of estimated retained value. Now, that is actually above industry average for all vehicle brands. However, I do want to point out this is a very expensive product, which normally negatively affects your resale value. And it's also electric, so that does depend on market conditions, how that's going to affect your resale value.
Now, we also have our combined reliability index, and using our latest 2026 data, GMC is rated just below the overall industry average.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is an important decision, and you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase. Also important in that decision is your warranty. So when it comes to the Hummer EV, you do have a 3-year 36,000 mile basic warranty and a 5-year 60,000 mile warranty on the drivetrain. The battery components are warranted for an additional term of 8 years and 100,000 miles, and you get 1 complimentary service visit. And guys, that wraps up our in-depth look at this very cool 2026 Hummer EV SUV. If you enjoyed this in-depth 7-day review of this very cool product, we'd appreciate you subscribing down below. By subscribing, you're going to help us to get more vehicles like this on loan so we can show you all the latest and greatest cars on the channel. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support because you make this all possible. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.